Hi, I'm Connie Silbernagel. I'm a veterinarian here at Hubbs-SeaWorld Research Institute, and my background specialty is with an emphasis on marine fish health and how that relates to public health. So animal welfare is at the forefront of everything we do. As a research institute, we actually have an animal care and use committee, and that group of people, it's multidisciplinary. It's some members of Hubbs and then other educational organizations with expertise in animal welfare. And we come together and discuss elements of how animal welfare will be managed at the Institute, as well as within each and every research project, including any production work that we may do. And what I'm briefly describing here is the committee that comes together to help instill guidelines. It'll change dependent on what the research being proposed is. So before any scientist at the Institute can get approval to go forward with research or even request funding, they have to get a sign-off by our committee that they've addressed animal welfare concerns. And a lot of those concerns are built off of different regulatory agency guidelines that are out there. From a veterinary standpoint, the American Veterinary Medical Association has a lot of stringent guidelines about how you have to handle animals, whether individual family pets or, in our case, it would be population animals, primarily finfish. And so there are ways that you have to handle them, to anesthetize them, to address proper feed and nutrition, husbandry concerns, things of that sort. In that sense, we take input from the American Veterinary Medical Association in that example I was giving, but several agencies have input in this. So whether it's the Food and Drug Administration as to what drugs you can safely use in fish and not have issues for tissue residues that will be long-lasting and eventually make it to consumers who might eat fish. It could be the United States Department of Agriculture and how you handle and export fish or import fish into the country. So there are a lot of general guidelines that people tend to follow, and then within aquaculture itself, there are lots of fishery societies, or even commercial fishermen, I'm sure, have some of their own guidelines with what they're supposed to follow to address animal welfare, because it is a concern. The general public might not realize that fishing organizations do take that into account, but they certainly do, and that's because there's a lot of interest from the public in addressing animal welfare correctly, which is a good thing. We can use our white sea bass program as a good example, which is a replenishment program here at Hubbs. And so kind of what we do to address welfare and fish health, we do have welfare guidelines established by the committee, and that kind of infiltrates biosecurity, husbandry and nutrition, and then actual health assessments that we perform. So from a biosecurity side, I would say that we separate animals by life stages. So broodstock would be our adult animals, and typically those are wild-caught animals. And then we have juvenile life stages and larval life stages. Larval being the youngest, they have lower immunity set until they reach a certain age. So really biosecurity is kind of really vital. So things we do, we have staff members who will divide themselves by life stage and kind of work within that life stage area for the day. So generally we try not to mix staff members between life stages. We have separate nets and buckets that we use for performing work assigned by color to each life stage area. We have foot baths to help decrease pathogen transmission just from walking from one sector to another. And then in the case of broodstock, for instance, when we're bringing in wild-caught broodstock, they undergo a 45-day quarantine in a separate tank system, which is typically recirculating and has UV disinfection techniques. And that's another important concept to bring up, is water quality. So almost all of our systems, almost all have ozone and UV disinfection components to the water itself before it even gets to the tank to touch the fish, because water quality makes up probably about 90% of fish health concerns. So if you have good water quality, then for the most part, if you're feeding and handling other husbandry components, then you're going to have good fish health.